Well, hello class. I hope all is well with you. We're about a week before class is ready to begin in business ethics. And I would just first like to tell you I'm sorry, I apologize, but there are not any PowerPoints to download for this particular class. So I will be using through Blackboard a lot of YouTube videos, these types of webcams to introduce what's coming from week to week. I am going to exclusively, as you heard in the course overview, be going through Blackboard in modules for each week, 8 weeks, 8 modules, in which within each module we will be covering a certain number of chapters. I think we can get through this quite easily. Case studies are pretty much straightforward. So right now I am going to be talking about Module 1, which is covering chapters 1 and 2. And essentially, Chapter 1 talks about the language of ethics, and Chapter 2 talks about some of the sources of ethical problems that exist in business today. We will be going through 2 case studies, the first one being the competitive advantage, and we will be discussing that case study in class. And the second one will be the parable of the sadhu, and we'll be doing that in class as well. So how do we get through 2 chapters in a night? Well, very simply, we have a lot of technology, we have some good interactive discussion. Business ethics seminars are small, so there's a lot more interaction. There's a lot more synergy, if you will, in the discussions. So I think we'll be getting through that quite well. And you don't have to worry about the grading and passing in assignments and all that. We'll do all that through Blackboard, which I explained in the course overview, and I'll briefly go over that in the first class again as well. So let's talk about the language of ethics. What is that about? Well, the first thing is that, as your book will explain to you, ethics in and of itself is about human welfare. It has to do with how do we look at each other? How do we treat each other as humankind? And we look at the initial imperative that we don't inflict harm on one another. And basically, our values, our actions, our goals, our conduct all tell us what the difference is between universal law and, like the 10 Commandments, if you will. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, and so forth and so on. But individuals have a different sense of ethics that they have from, say, for example, your personal life, and then something happens magically when you go through the business doors, if you will. When you get into the organization, there's a sense of power, depending on where you are on the organizational grid. Your responsibility to shareholders to make decisions that are legal but may not necessarily be ethical. So when we look at chapters 1 and 2, essentially that's what we're going to be talking about. Ethical problems in business arise a lot when our purest ethics, our values, if you will, are not the same as what we need to do to satisfy the corporation or the shareholders. So we're going to be talking a lot about that in the first 2 chapters. So that's kind of an overview of what's to come. I am going to be posting some YouTube videos based on some things you might want to look at before you come into class. There are essentially no assignments for the first week, but you certainly want to read through chapters 1 through 4, and there will be assignments going into week 2. That is the second week where we're covering chapters 3 and 4, And we're going to be looking at ethics, stakeholders, corporate strategies, and then look at how we respond to our shareholders, and then getting into chapter 4, what are some of the business ethics in a global economy, where our sense of ethics here in the United States might be not the same sense of ethics around the globe. Okay, so that's kind of an overview of chapter 1. Look at where we talk about signs of ethical values, signs of ethical challenges, how they relate to your world, and then we'll have some discussions in class. Okay? Thanks.